Hey everybody, Jason Caldwell here. Thanks for tuning in. This is, I don't know, maybe my fourth or fifth little series here on rowing different bodies of water. So I'm looking forward to uh, giving you a little information about the Amazon River, which I just got back from on a scouting trip. Just to be clear, I wasn't on the actual row yet. I did a 2 week scouting trip in the Amazon. I got back a couple weeks ago, and I plan on doing the stretch that I'm working on about 500 miles, and I plan on doing that in September. So looking forward to answering some questions about the Amazon. A truly wild place, a place that I've kind of daydreamed about as a kid for a long time, and it was amazing to be able to go there and see the things that I thought would be true, and a lot of stuff that was not true. So, um, yeah. So, a couple things before I start. I've got a handful of questions. Looking forward to answering those. But before, the Amazon. It's really important that when I go to places like the Amazon, or when I've gone to Africa, or even just on the oceans, that we respect the environment that we're in. We don't just treat it as our playground to do things like claim world records, and always trying to leave them in better shape than when we arrived. And this trip is certainly no different, and maybe even a little bit more important, because this trip is different than a lot of my other adventures in one big way, is that I'm not attempting a world record. I'm not rowing the entire Amazon. The Amazon River is, give or take, 4,000 miles if you start from the source. Um, Quite frankly, that would take me 6 months probably to do. I'm not interested in being away from the family for 6 months. So I'm doing a kind of an iconic stretch in Brazil, um, from an indigenous community way up, kind of in the heart of the Amazon, down to Manaus, which is the largest city on the Amazon. So it's about a 500-mile stretch. I'm not trying to break a world record. I'm simply trying to challenge myself and how I lead teams, because for those of you who don't know, I Lat 35 is a company that I own, and it's a leadership development company. So we teach leadership and high performance team building to large corporations. So we set up their training programs and deliver their training programs. And I've been in this doing this for on my 18th year now. So we have a philosophy on how we build teams and how we lead teams, but each one of these adventures is a chance for me to put what I teach into practice and to see if it actually works. And so this is really kind of taking that to the next level, because for this Amazon trip, I am going to the top of the stretch that I'm going to be rowing without a team, just a boat and my gear. And I am challenging myself with recruiting different indigenous people to row with me down any portion of the stretch that I'm doing, whether it's the entire part or just 50 miles, because the Amazon River, especially up there, is everyone's main primary source of transportation. And a lot of these towns can only be accessed by the rivers. There's no roads in the Amazon when you get up that far north, until you get to Peru. So it's either fly into these towns, these towns dotted along the Amazon, or communities, or paddle there, or row there, take a boat there. So um, because we know that that's their highway, part of the scouting trip that I was just on was to uh, ingratiate myself with some of these communities, get to know them, have them get to know me, and basically ask people if they'd be interested. And it was really cool because I got a very warm and enthusiastic response to it. I've got a handful of people, both men and women, that are going to row different lengths with me, or at least have committed to that to me. And so my commitment to them is to come back in September, and to be there and to show up and to welcome them on the four-person wooden canoe that I'm going to be paddling down this stretch with. So it's very different, and I'm excited about this different type of challenge. And yeah, look forward to spending the next 5 months in preparation. All right. So with that, I was going to start answering some of these questions. So let's hear the first one here from Double Play.
Hi, Jason. For your food supply, I assume you're planning to do a lot of fishing along the way. What are some of the fish you expect to haul in, and what methods will you use to catch them? Thanks.
Yeah. So Again, because this one's different, I'm not doing this unassisted. I'll have a big boat, boat that we actually use for the scouting trip that will be following me. That is a boat that I will be going on to every night to sleep because it's very, very dangerous on the Amazon, because of piracy, bandits, those types of things. So you need to be in a bigger boat that's secure with a security team, which we had when we were there a couple weeks ago, and I'll have then again. So um, that being said, I will be eating some of my meals with the crew there, but you're right. I am going to be doing a lot of fishing because the people that I'm taking on board with me, I want to learn from them. And a lot of these people are hunters and fishermen. And so I already got a chance to do a little bit of that a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to continue to do that. So yeah, like a lot of the meals, I want to learn. I want to watch them to fish. And so for them, fishing is usually with small nets or spears. I know it sounds pretty crazy, but that's how they do it there. I can't remember all the names of the fish, and of course, the language barrier makes it difficult to kind of hear them all and remember them all. And they're so different than the fish that we're used to here in North America. But um, some of the fish I saw there, I mean, it's they're very big, they're very meaty. We ate a ton of fish there, and it all got pulled obviously directly out of the river. You're talking about cutting into a fish like you would cut into a steak. So it's that thick. Eating ribs, like fish ribs, just like you would eating it, from the ribs from a bull. Um, uh, so it's we it's kind of just going to be what are we fishing for? And I'll try anything. Crocodile is a big one there too. They hunt for that, so we'll be doing that a little bit as well. While I don't share their enthusiasm with that one, I will do it, and I'll be safe. And I have tried crocodile. It's not great, but it's not bad either. So we'll try that. All right, Danny.
Hey, Jason, this is Danny from Menlo Park. I'm curious how you manage your calorie intake on a trip such as this, and how you optimize what you bring with you, and how you make sure you have enough energy to do what you need to do. Thanks.
Yeah, Danny. I mean, like I said, kind of answered a little bit of that already. I will be having some of my meals on the big boat. Um, one of the things that I've learned about with all the adventures I've done, to Atlantic crossings, Pacific crossing, trek across the Namib Desert, many other smaller adventures, is you don't need as much food as you think you do. Um, you know, we are used to eating whenever we want to. We have big meals, much bigger meals than our ancestors had. We snack in between meals. That is a relatively new concept for humans, as the world, especially the Western world, has gotten richer and food is just always available. That's not how we were built. And, we are still very much a product of our ancestors. And although we feel hungry all the time because we're used to eating, and our internal clock says it's time to eat, therefore I'm going to send signals to your brain that we're hungry. You're actually not. And so I find myself tapping into that more kind of primitive side when I'm out there, and I actually find I'm not as hungry. That doesn't mean that I won't lose weight, and I probably will, just like I have lost and all my other things, but my production's still there. So calories are important, but having a decent meal in the morning before it gets too hot, having a decent meal in the evening is really good, and not being able staying hydrated is more important than eating throughout the day. So I always find myself in these adventures not eating that much, and people think that it's a bad thing. It's not. It's what our bodies are meant to do. They are meant to be productive in a fasted state. We hear a lot of stuff about fasting. I'm not going to get into that right now. I have my thoughts on it, but generally speaking, like being in a fasted state um, is a good thing, and so I use that to my advantage when I'm out there. So I come off these things looking a lot skinnier, and people think, "Oh my goodness, you must have been suffering." That's actually not true. I feel pretty good. So it's only when I get home that I stuff myself with a bunch of calories I don't need. So yeah, it's kind of a roundabout way of answering that question, but hopefully that satiates your question. All right, Kim.
Hey, Jason. Hey, a lot of the narrative around the Amazon is about protecting it, its indigenous people, its resources. And I'm wondering how a trip like yours contributes to that narrative. Thank you.
Yeah, really important question that probably deserves its own event and its own time. Maybe we'll do one on that because I learned a lot about the indigenous populations there, how they survive, the help that they receive both privately and from governments, and if that help is good help or if it's unproductive, and it's both, by the way. Obviously, the greed there, they have a lot of natural resources, a lot of diamonds, a lot of gold. People are constantly mining for that, stripping away their shores, driving their the animals that they live off of away, killing the fish that they feed off of. So there's a lot to unpack there, and it's quite difficult, and it's not as simple as saying, you know, we need to help these people more or we need to stay away from them. It's actually a combination of both, and it's complex. But the question was, what can I do? And like I said at the beginning of this, I don't want to use these types of environments as my playground to accomplish what I accomplish and then kind of f off and never talk to these people again. That's why I'm excited about this one is that I'm going to be integrating myself into their way of life, not the other way around. I'm not bringing my big ocean rowing boat, which we considered at the beginning of planning for this. I'm going to row in their boats. I'm not going to. I'm not bringing a team that can do this by themselves. We're bringing them along. And so I think the best way to do it is to listen. Is the first thing you need to do. You need to go to these kinds of places with a lot of humility and curiosity. And even if you don't speak the same language, there's a way to understand and listen. And that's what we do when we go to these communities. And we went to three specific communities when I was there earlier in the month. It's about asking them permission to be there. We have fixers and translators and security that all know these people, and so we're not going in there cold, just showing up on a big boat and saying, "Hey, can we hang out with you?" But we've already gotten permission to come, and so it's about trying to communicate with them, listening to what they say, having a translator translate it to you, um, and being able to ask what they need, and if you can get it for them, that's great, and if you can't, at least you're trying, and I think one of the biggest things is just to listen to what are their biggest challenges, and then maybe trying to help with that in a small way. I think for them, they were just inspired by this idea that somebody would want to paddle their river, their stretch. I'm not trying to get any natural resources from them. I'm not trying to do business with them. I just want to learn from them. I think that's gone a long way. So I could speak on this topic for a long time. So maybe I will create another event that we can talk about that stuff specifically because I know that's you know people are there's a lot of misinformation out there. People are very passionate about that, and as am I. And so I learned a lot about both the peoples that are there, but also the environment, the Amazon itself. So I'll keep it there. All right, let's talk to Jack.
Jason, I was wondering what kind of boat you're going to use to row in the Amazon River, and you're going to have a crew, and where is your starting point? Thanks.
Great. Yep. Boat is just a literal wooden canoe that I'll be taking. There's tons of them in every little community that you could pull up. We found a boat builder in one of the last towns that we'll be at before we head up to the start line, um, and um, and he's agreed to build me a boat. It's just so it's he can build one in a day. So that's how simple they are. Starting in a Maminawa tribe. It's a community about 50 miles north of Tefé, which is a very small town, which is kind of like the last like city, if you can call it that, uh, before you hit Peru. So up there, and I'm going down to the finish line for me will be Manaus, which is the largest city on the Amazon River, about 2.5 million people. and it's where the Amazon, the Rio Negro, which is the sixth largest river, by the way, meets the Amazon. It's where they come together, and it's a very dramatic kind of confluence where you see the muddy brown water of the Amazon being met with the dark black, almost like black tea, looks like water of the Rio Negro, and they make a very distinct line as they're merging together, and it almost looks like someone's pouring cream in coffee. It's incredible. So that's literally the finish line, that line. So that's where we're going. That's the boat we'll be in, and I already told you my teammates will be the people I meet there. So, Reid.
Hey, Jason, another question, maybe a little bit more specific. How do you approach safety, sleep, and nutrition as you do your scouting and as you go and do something like this? And I guess if other people have done this before, might play into some of those answers. But good luck, and look forward to tracking you and hearing how it's going.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a good question. It's a complex question. Sleep and safety, I'll address those first. Sleep will be easier than any of my ocean rows because I won't be just doing a strict 2 hours on, 2 hours off. I'll sleep on the big boat. I'll get a good night's sleep. I'll probably get up quite early, and as early as it's safe to leave, I'll leave before the sun gets intense. And the sun is intense. You're 3 degrees south of the equator. And that means that the sun is intense. And for those of you that spend any time around the equator, it's just a different feel. Um, it's just an intensity that can really drain you. So it's about staying covered, wearing long sleeves, covering all your skin when you're in the height of the day, which I will do. I just put in perspective the Bay Area, and more specifically where I'm from, Danville. But the Bay Area generally is around 37 degrees north of the equator, and you know how hot it gets here in the summer. It can get very warm here, especially in the East Bay. So, and we're a solid, 34 degrees further away from the equator than they are. So, intense heat and intense sun. So yeah, that's where we'll go with that one. All right, let's see here. Let's go to hey, Rick Barry. Let's see what you have to say.
This is Rick Barry, and I was on an amazing fishing trip to the Amazon for peacock bass earlier this year, and I saw how crazy all of the offshoots are off of that river, and I was just wondering what you're using in order to make sure that you don't wind up going off track over such a vast area.
Yeah, great question, Rick. Spoken like somebody who's definitely been there. The Amazon is huge. I mean, it's hard to uh, it's hard to overemphasize that. It's massive. It's like if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, you've seen pictures of the Grand Canyon. When you go there, it seems it's just so much more massive. The Amazon, essentially the Amazon rainforest is the size of the continental US. So imagine the continental US being completely covered in trees. No deserts, no mountains, no hills or, just grassy plains, just thick forest from California all the way to the East Coast. That's how big it is. And within that, as Rick was saying, the Amazon River is the biggest river in the world. It's the Nile and the Amazon are argued is which one's longer. It doesn't matter. They're both huge. And there are offshoots, and there's about 6 to 8 rivers, all of which would be the biggest rivers in the United States, would be bigger than the Missouri, that come into feeding the Amazon. These rivers are huge and they feed into the Amazon. So that just gives you an idea of how big the river is. And some parts of the river that I'll be rowing at will be, you know, 50 yards wide, half a football field wide. Other times so especially as I get closer to Manaus, it'll be 2-3 miles wide. When you get to the mouth of the river, part that I won't get to where it feeds into the Atlantic, It's so wide you can't see either of the shores. So from the middle, so that it's massive, and I could give you a lot of other interesting stats, but I won't. But other things they're shooting off, as Rick said, are just lakes. They're just big pools, especially during the rainy season, which is when I was there. So everything's flooded. Some of these lakes, they're essentially almost unnamed lakes, but these lakes are bigger than Lake Tahoe. I mean, so imagine just coming off the river, this little opening, and then it goes into this lake that would be bigger than Lake Tahoe. So there's just so much water, and there are so many ways to go the wrong direction. How do I mitigate against that? That is twofold. One is I'll have locals with me always in the boat. So I'll always have somebody there that knows the river much, much better than I do, which is one of the benefits. And of course, GPS. So I use a Garmin InReach. If anyone's ever done any camping or any hiking, or like I said, it's a great, great little piece of kit that is essentially acts as like a sat phone, does everything a sat phone would do outside of making calls. You can text from it, and you can pair it to your phone, so you can actually like text from your phone, and it'll shoot it out to your people, and that's a nice way to communicate with my family. But it is also a great navigational tool, and you can pair it to your phone and pull up the map, and you can see a detailed map of where you're at, and you can ensure that you're going in the right way. It's never perfect. The Amazon changes, it floods, it recedes. So you do have to double check things, but that's how I'm going to do it. So anyway, that's that. All right.
Hi, Jason. This is Conrad Figueroa from Danville, California. I'm just wondering, obviously you've done these kind of trips all over the world and some pretty amazing accomplishments. What was the biggest difference in being in the Amazon versus like open water? And are you going to do it again anytime soon? Let me know. Take care.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I've been talking about up to this point, answers Conrad's question. Um, all the things I've been talking about are a lot different than oceans. I think the biggest difference is, you know, uh, this is going to be an easier row or paddle, I should call it. It will be. I mean, it's not 3,000 miles; it's 500. It's you've got a current, not a strong one, but you do have a current. Um, I'm not hitting big waves, and there will be storms, but I have support. So, you know, it's it's clear to me after spending 2 weeks there and spending a lot of that time paddling and understanding the boats, and that it'll be an easier row. But the logistics of this is a lot more different because unlike an ocean, you have people. So, and people add complexity and danger. So, uh, there is this is the Amazon is a major drug trafficking route out of Colombia. You have to worry about that. And with that comes piracy. So there are boats out there that are looking to just board other boats, bigger boats. They think they might have anything of value. They'll steal anything. They think you have drugs, they'll steal it. Gasoline, steal it, anything that's of value. So, with that, we have to bring a security team. And that means that there's firearms on board. So, and all these things go on and on. And you're choosing you know, to get involved in a very complex um, part of the world where it's still, equivalent to our Wild West. I mean, think about what the United States looked like 150 years ago, 200 years ago, and that's what we're dealing with in the Amazon. I mean, it's still very much there. I mean, first, just like the U.S. 200 years ago, it was so vast that it can't be properly policed. So people oftentimes do what they want to do or what they need to do. So that's one thing, it's still there. Yeah, there's a lot of natural resources, and there's indigenous tribes, and they have a very similar story to what the United States had 150, 200 years ago. Um, Hopefully it doesn't go the same way that it went with us. And it's a really interesting time in the Amazon for them to make some big decisions about how they're going to treat sacred land, how they're going to treat indigenous people that have been there um, for as long as humans have been alive. That's the complexity. That's what makes it dangerous and what makes it different. And it's both exciting, but it requires that I do a lot of homework, and that's homework I enjoy doing, unlike all the other homework I did growing up. All right, Cyrus.
Hi, Jason. I understand that you've rowed across both the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. My question to you is, I mean, given you're experiencing the most solitude a human being could experience outside of space, what is that experience like? You know, I'd love to get your feedback on that, since you're one of the few human beings on the planet who could actually answer this kind of question. So continue the great work, man. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Cyrus. Yeah, I have. I've experienced a lot of solitude as a result of rowing oceans. I'm with teams on all three of my ocean crossings. I've been on teams of four, so it's me and three others. But an interesting stat when you're in the middle of an ocean like that in a rowboat, besides the people that are on your boat, on your team, most likely the next closest person to you is in the International Space Station, and that's how vast the ocean is. Um, so yeah, it comes with a lot of solitude, and I love that solitude. There's been times when we've had to clean the bottom of the boat for all my ocean crossings, where you pick a calm day, and I've seen the ocean as flat as a floor, and you jump out, and you even swim out away from the boat a little bit if you've got the nerve. And there's been moments where I've just put my head underwater and just thought that probably no other human being has ever been in this exact spot, and that is an amazing and sobering, almost sacred type of feeling. Also scary, and I love that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do this stuff, is to have those types of experiences. The Amazon won't be that kind of solitude. I'll have people around me at all times. Even if I was rowing this by myself and I didn't have a support team, I would be coming into, there's local communities dotted along the river. I'll never be that much solitude, but there is a solitude of the mind when you're doing something as monotonous as rowing or paddling, where you're taking thousands and thousands of strokes every day. And so it allows your mind to wander, and it's a great thing, and probably something that I should do more of. We all should do more of, is allow our minds to wander. Probably heard this before, but daydreaming has largely gone out the window, because we always have something to distract ourselves. We've got our devices, we've got computers, screens everywhere, and so we're never too far away from a screen. So our minds don't have a time to have solitude. They always have somewhere to turn and somewhere to focus their attention. And I largely think that that's a detriment to us as humans, especially for our creativity. I don't know if this stat is accurate. I know it's accurate because I read it. I have a hard time believing this, but the CEO of LinkedIn says that he dedicates 2 hours a day to just sitting and just letting his mind go wherever. And 2 hours a day for a CEO of LinkedIn, that's a lot of time. But even if it was 1 hour, even if it was 30 minutes, I think it's a really cool exercise to do, and a lot harder than people think. People always say that they want some, I just need time to detox. I just need time to relax, but we never give it to ourselves. It's easy to do. It's easier to do that than it is to go on vacation. You can just literally sit with nothing. These trips allow me to get to sit with nothing in my head except for just the horizon and my thoughts. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It's something that doesn't require you rowing the Amazon River across an ocean to do. It just requires putting down a device, sitting in a chair in your office or in your home, and just let your mind go wherever, and don't pick up the phone. So anyway, that's my little 2 cents for that. All right, Rich.
Hey, Jason, we were on the Amazon River earlier this year on a cruise ship. I'm wondering what part of the Amazon River you're going to be doing. We went up all the way to Manaus and then flew home from there. Just wondering what part of the Amazon you're going to be rowing. Thanks. Bye.
Cool, Rich. It's cool that you got to Manaus. So it sounds like you started, I'm assuming, from the mouth of the Amazon, came in from the Atlantic side, and then cruised up to Manaus. My finish line will be Manaus, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to start about 500 miles, upriver from that, and go down to Manaus. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what your thought of Manaus was. it's a big city. Not a lot to do in my opinion, but a lot going on, a lot of people, a lot of energy. So um, anyway, so yeah, so I'll be coming down. So your finish line's my finish line, but I'm coming from the opposite direction. So and oh yeah, Reed's got one more. So let me finish up with this last question.
Hey, Jason. Reid Swanson from Danville. First, congratulations on even attempting something like this. What's the biggest thing you learned in the scouting trip? That'd be question number one. Thanks, man. Good luck.
That was a cool one to end on. I learned I'm not gonna be able to keep it to one. I'll give two. One, the first one is the language barrier is real. Most people don't speak. So if you're in the south part of Brazil, Rio, Sao Paulo, lot of English speaking people there. But when you get up to the Amazon, it might as well just be a different continent because it's just a different set of rules, and no one speaks English, and not that they need to. So, but it's Portuguese, and I speak enough Spanish to just get by. But Portuguese is there's a lot of similarities to Spanish, but when it's spoken, it's very difficult to understand, at least for me. So it was 2 weeks of just like really struggling to have just basic conversations. The film crew spoke English, and my fixer spoke English, but even my own security guy didn't speak any English. And none of the boat people, the captain, the pilot, engineer, none of those people spoke any English. So it's so difficult to just have that basic "how you doing? How did you sleep last night? What's for breakfast?" kind of thing. Conversation is really difficult. So um, I dedicated from the moment I got home. I do Duolingo every day on with Spanish, just to challenge myself. But I've switched it immediately to Portuguese because even if I can grab 150 words and a handful of basic sentences, that's going to go a long way on my trip in September for two reasons. One is obviously we'll be able to communicate more effectively. But the second one is it'll just show that I'm trying. I shouldn't go there and expect them to speak English. They should expect that I can speak some Portuguese. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I have been doing. So that's one thing. The other thing I'd say that I learned a lot is just this is kind of a generalization. Again, not time to go into specifics, but because it is kind of like their Wild West, there's a gray area with everything. You know, there's a big drug trafficking, economy there. We think in the U.S. here that if you're involved in something like that, you're a bad guy. But it's not necessarily true there. I mean, I met people out there that partook in that stuff and do it because that's how they can get paid, and they were nice people, that have families and kids that they're trying to take care of. And some of those people I was with for a long time out there for 10 days, and by the end of our trip I was hugging them and telling them I'd seen them in September. It's different. You can't take our set of rules and principles and values and just go over there and just kind of impose them on their culture and their world, because it's a different world, and that's important. And that was something that I learned a lot, and I'm happy. If I would say I'm proud of myself or anything, it's that with all the adventures I've gone on, I've really learned humility, and to go there and make no judgments and just want to learn. And that was a big one for me, and I'm really happy that I learned that. So anyway, that's what I've got for you. This was cool. Thank you for the questions. I really appreciate them all. They were really good. Uh, Obviously, we're going to do a bigger one when I get back in October about my trip, and I'd like to do a few leading up to that. Maybe focusing a little bit more on some specific issues, such as, you know, is the indigenous communities there and how we can help them. Um, and sometimes that's by giving them things, sometimes that's by leaving them alone, and do some other cool things like that. So until then, thanks everybody for tuning in, and I look forward to the next one. So talk soon. Bye.